Welcome to my channel. My name is Priska Jordan, and in today's video, I'm going to show you 30 oddly specific things that I'm decluttering for my home to make it more peaceful, tidy, and functional. There's a 99.9% chance that you're like me, not an extreme hoarder, but you might be feeling this sense of overwhelm from the excess stuff that you don't use, yet still have to clean and organize, and it just makes your home look messy. Do you know how many items are in the average American home? 300,000. And that's a terrible problem because we all buy things to enhance our lives, but when it becomes piles of clutter, it steals your life. So let's go room by room and find these 30 oddly specific things that are easy to declutter. The first thing that I found that was easy for me to declutter is a perfectly good quilt, except for it doesn't fit my design scheme anymore, so I'm never going to use it. Now the clutter bug says,
it's technically fine except for you dislike how it looks.
But Peaceful Priska says, I want to create a home that I like to look at and live in, and that's a great reason to clean out the things I no longer enjoy. The second oddly specific piece you can declutter is the stack of books on your nightstand that reminds you how much you haven't read this year. Listen, if you look at anything in your home and you feel heavy shame for something you haven't completed, then either resolve it or decide that it wasn't worth doing. Objects can't bully you, but you can have unspoken meaning attached to things, so dig into those feelings and resolve them. And until you do, don't allow a stack of books to bully you. The third item is dusty candles. I've been decluttering my artificially scented candles for years now, and I whittled it down to about one candle that I thought I could stand. The problem is my sinuses react to them. I get these really annoying tension headaches whenever I'm around a lot of fake scent. And I thought I could handle this last candle that has been my favorite for years, but now that I'm pregnant, everything smells stronger. So I've switched to using only essential oils and I feel much better. In the bathroom, I want to get rid of beauty products that I no longer use, but they're half empty and dusty. Now the clutter bug says,
why does it matter you have stuff you won't use again? As long as it's organized in proper storage, who cares?
But Peaceful Priska says, every time I see an object, it's a small tax on my focus. I have to remember what it is and whether or not I'm using it. So extra clutter isn't net neutral, it's net negative on one of the most valuable resources I have, my mind. Something that should be a little easier to declutter are those teeny tiny samples that you didn't want to begin with. I double dog dare you, next time you're at a store and they're pushing free samples that you don't want, just say no. People get so confused when you don't want free things. But there are 3 reasons why free samples are a tax on your clutter-free home. Number 1, they don't ever give you enough so that you can decide if you want to buy the full-size product anyway. Number 2, they end up cluttering your bathroom cabinets. And number 3, salespeople aren't giving you free stuff because they care about you. It's just a sales tactic to incentivize you to spend more money. So they give you something, and then when they ask you to upgrade, you're more likely to say yes because that's a fair exchange, right? False. So just keep in mind the real cost of a free sample. The next thing to declutter are ratty mismatched towels. It's a simple everyday luxury to have a matching set of plush towels that actually absorb water. I recently had a baby shower and somehow ended up with 13 baby-sized towels for my child that isn't even born yet. He owns more towels than his parents. That's confounding. Anyway, I'm donating most of those because that's way too many for a baby, but I'm starting with the ones that are polyester because even though they're precious as a peach, they don't absorb water, and that's kind of the point of a towel, right? The next thing I found to declutter is this old hairdry brush that I kept in case I wanted to use a thing that wasn't as good as the thing I replaced it with. And in keeping with that theme, I also found an old scale that I upgraded but didn't toss just in case I wanted to use the old one that also does not work as well. The more I talk through that thought process, the more I realize how nuts that sounds. But hopefully this is relatable to you and helps you think through those 300,000-ish items that are in your own home too. If so, let me know by tapping that like button. And if you want to see more videos from me about living intentionally, then please subscribe to my channel. In the living room, most of us probably have excess throw pillows and blankets. I used to keep excess throw pillows for seasonal rotation. I would change them out for the holidays or for the seasons. And the problem with that is that they're really bulky. So when I used to have a house with a lot of storage, that was no problem. But now that I live in a condo with literally 0 storage closets, I have nowhere to put these extra pillows. So instead, I buy seasonal pillow covers and reuse the inserts year round. It's easier to store a few pillow covers than a bunch of bulky pillows. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with having lots of blankets in your living room. They're cozy, they make the home feel comfortable, and they add such beautiful texture to your design theme. But realistically, how many extra blankets do we need? We tend to keep blankets that are tattered or ratty looking, even when we have better ones to use. We've gotten so used to having excess things that we now have storage containers just for blankets. And that's how a few extra pieces becomes piles and piles of clutter. So take a look at all your blankets and get rid of the ones that are already worn out, and you'll have what's left over is all the good ones that you like to use anyway. The next oddly specific thing that I need to declutter are books that aren't still useful to me. This one's going to take me a little more time to sort through. The clutter bug says,
You already have so many books, why does it matter if you keep a few extra?
but Peaceful Priska says, I no longer want to keep things that don't align with who I am in the present. If something was a blessing to me before, but now it's just clutter, it's time to thank it and part ways. As we head to the kitchen, I'm going to be totally honest, under my kitchen sink, it's a hot mess. In the next video, I'm going to talk about organizing and hopefully get that situation managed. But for now, here's an honest look at one of the messiest areas of my home. Okay, be honest, how many vases do you have under your kitchen sink? I was tickled when I realized that this is such a common clutter item and we all love sticking them under the sink. But truth be told, when I buy flowers, I only ever use my fancy vases that I paid for, not the free ones that came with a previous flower delivery. So to the donation pile it goes. And as I close the doors on that mess to organize next week, this ratty hand towel is sticking out. It's time to get rid of any stained or ratty linens. It's clean, but it doesn't look clean. It doesn't feel clean when you use it. So it's time to get rid of it. And another oddly specific item that doesn't really feel clean when you use it are those fabric pot holders. A couple of years ago, I upgraded to some silicone pot holders, which number one, not only work better for preventing your hands from getting burned, but number two, I always get them dirty, but I just wash them with soap and water and they're good as new. So if you need to replace your pot holders, I will leave the link to my silicone ones down in the description box below for you to shop. In the kitchen cabinets, there's probably a lot of excess clutter, right? One thing that I think is easy to get rid of is the snarky coffee mug that you no longer resonate with. In my 20s, this was like a really common Christmas gift from friends. It was either a candle or a coffee mug, so I ended up with a cabinet full of mismatched mugs that I didn't really like. I ended up donating those years ago, so I tried pulling up some images for you from Google, and let me tell you, some of these things are so snarky. These people need Jesus and therapy. Both. Another item that tends to clutter kitchen cabinets are those food containers that don't have a matching lid to them. How many times have you packed up dinner leftovers in a container and reached into your cabinets for the matching lid, only to find that it doesn't exist? So then instead of transferring the food to a container with a matching lid, you just throw some tinfoil on it. And then when you eat the leftovers, you stick the container in the dishwasher to repeat that maddening process again. How many times has that happened to you? That's an oddly specific scenario that a lot of us can probably relate to. So this is an item that is an oddly specific thing. It's time to declutter. The next thing I'm ready to part ways with are those cleaning supplies that are half full, but I don't ever use. The clutter bug says,
You already have it. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
But Peaceful Priska says, if you haven't used it in years, then you don't really need it. The cleaning supplies that you use regularly are the ones you actually need. The next thing is a paper towel holder that has served its purposes for me, but I no longer have counter space for. I've already replaced this item, but it's sentimental to me because I got it as a wedding present, and it's just been sitting in my storage closet, aka my husband's wardrobe, for over a year now. And I keep thinking, well, when we move to the next house, I might want to use it. But how many things should I keep just in case I want it at a house that I can't even imagine right now? Fun fact, Americans spend over $37 billion annually on storage units. And before the 1 in 10 of you who uses a storage unit slices me up in the comments, I know there are good purposes for storage units. I've had one when I needed it before, but I would bet a lot of the stuff that is in that $37 billion a year of storage units is stuff that could be decluttered and bring you more peace of mind if you weren't holding on to those sentimental things that you're probably not going to use anyway. Hopefully this video has given you pause to think through those extra things that you own, but before you travel to your storage unit, let's tackle something closer to home. While most people have storage closets, I just have nooks and crannies around my home that I've stuck things that I would put in a storage closet if I had one. For example, I'm decluttering this generic artwork that I felt guilty about paying money for, but I really dislike. I recently filmed my home tour video, and in it I talked about how it's better to have a blank wall than to fill your space with generic art that means absolutely nothing to you. And as I was editing that video, I realized that this art piece means absolutely nothing to me. It was a spontaneous purchase when we moved into this place, and I had these massive blank walls to fill. But that was a waste of money, and I wish I could go back and tell myself not to buy it. In lieu of that, I'll make the good decision now to declutter it. The next oddly specific thing that might be found in your home are those shipping boxes that you've saved in case of returns. Now the clutter bug says,
You might need to return it, and you need the shipping box in case you do.
but Peaceful Priska says, it's been 6 months since you bought the thing. Even if it breaks, you can't return it. In reality, I usually keep the original shipping box for 1 day to 1 week, depending on the cost of the item. And so far, this method has not come back to bite me. This next item is controversial. I found these drawer dividers that I've replaced with something that works better for my dresser back there, but I kept this item in case I want to use it to reorganize another space later. The only thing is I have no plans of buying another dresser. I have all the drawer dividers that I need, so I'm going to donate these and give the gift of organization to someone else. Another oddly specific piece I'm joyfully decluttering is a Jonas Brothers photo album that I kept as a gag gift for over 15 years. Oddly specific? Yes. And I have no idea how this applies to you unless you have a box of gag gifts that you've kept for over 15 years. Then maybe it's time for a declutter. These next few items I'm calling office because that's where I keep them, but if you don't have an office, it might be in a kitchen junk drawer or your work tote, but the first piece is these used to be useful work papers. So one time I had this work crisis where nobody knew how we did something, but because I kept this paper from November 7th, 2018, the crisis was averted. Just kidding, that never happened. Instead, what often happens is that I have so many work papers that it would be impossible for me to find the exact thing I'm looking for that's actually useful. So now what I do is I go through quarterly and rip out any old papers that are just becoming clutter in my binders, at my desk, and getting into the rhythm of a quarterly work papers clean out has served me really well. Another pile of papers you might want to declutter are old receipts and manuals that you're never going to look at again. The clutter bug says,
But what if you need to disassemble the desk and you don't remember how to do it because you threw away the assembly manual?
But Peaceful Priska says, when have I ever used the assembly manual after assembling something? Literally 0 times in my life. One of the easiest things to declutter is probably dead pens. If you have any dead pens lying around your home, go ahead and get rid of those. They're not useful to you anyway. But another thing I'm decluttering are the wheels to a desk that I'm never going to want to put on wheels. Oddly specific, yes. But if you buy something that comes with gizmos and gadgets that you're not using, how long should you keep it? We've had this desk for a year and I can see no reason why I would want to put it on wheels, so I'm getting rid of this extra clutter. I saved the hardest category for last. The previous 26 items I think are relatively easy to clutter, but digital clutter, It's not an easy thing to declutter because 1, we have so much of it, 2, it seems free even though it's a tax on your focus and your energy, and 3, you think, what if I need something that I just deleted? Well, just like with old work papers, the more you have, the less useful it becomes because there's no real organizational system, and I find that with digital clutter as well. You know how I mentioned a quarterly rhythm of decluttering my work papers? I do the same thing with digital clutter. So lately I've been pondering how many photos we really need and just the use of digital photos because I'm having my first baby soon. And nowadays, if you don't take 32 photos of your child every day, you must not really love them. But what happens is that our children inherit not only our physical clutter, but also this digital clutter. And long before that happens, they're inheriting our habits for how we're managing stuff. I'm not sure how I'm going to manage photos as a new parent. If you're really good at that, then let me know down in the comments. But for now, just thinking out loud, maybe it's time to declutter your photos. And next, I'm decluttering the Notes app. This is something I also do quarterly, and maybe it's oddly specific, but I like to keep lists and thought starters, ideas for YouTube videos on my Notes app, and it can get to around 40 or so notes in a quarter, and then I go through and clear out any that I just don't feel I'm going to pursue. Sometimes, if it's a good idea, I'll write it in my actual ideas repository that's on my computer, and that helps me to manage it a little bit better, but clearing out all those old notes and especially just opening up your phone and not having clutter on it is just a really nice feeling. Number 29, I am decluttering an old laptop that doesn't even turn on anymore. So as I was recently clearing up my storage closet, my husband's wardrobe, I found his old laptop that he hasn't used in years. For context, my husband is the least clutter-minded, sentimental person on the planet, but even he fell prey to the idea of keeping this old laptop in case there's some files on it that he might need one day. So I suggested, how about this? Let's open up the computer and take out the files you need and put them on the cloud. But when he went to turn on the computer, it took 12 hours for it to boot up. And by that point, he realized he didn't need any files on this computer and it's time to toss the old thing. And number 30, an easy one to go along with this, I'm getting rid of the charging cords that we no longer use, especially for old technology that I've gotten rid of. And that wraps up the 30 oddly specific items I'm decluttering from my home. I hope you're inspired to clean out the things that distract you from what really matters. Ultimately, your home is there to enhance your daily life, and you can create a home that you love to live in. I'd love to know which item you're going to start with in your home, so let me know down in the comments. Since you enjoyed this video, I recommend you watch my wardrobe decluttering video next. I'll see you with the next video. Until then, take care.